Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Pauline, and this episode, I kind of wanted to start out discussing aids and help for caregivers. Now, whether you are a caregiver right now, you were a caregiver for someone that you love, you're getting ready to transition into being a caregiver, or if that seems kind of like far off before that time, you never really know when you're going to have to assume the position of being a caregiver. Now, a caregiver could be, you could be a caregiver to your spouse, your mother, your father, your grandparents, your child, perhaps a neighbor, depending on how close you are with them. There's a lot of factors that play into being a caregiver. Now, there are times when we can prepare because perhaps your spouse or your parent is aging. And so we know that that time is coming, and you've been slowly making preparations either to have them move in with you or for you to move in with them, depending on your situation. There's a lot of things that happen, or you perhaps were, in an accident, or if you suffered from a stroke or something. So you may have to assume the role of being a caregiver unexpectedly without any prior preparation. Now, and that's okay, because there are very few of us who are fortunate enough to actually have either members of our own immediate family or extended family take us in. Now, and if you are a caregiver, I highly commend you, because it is a very tough job that I think goes very unrecognized. And I think that unless you were a caregiver to someone, or you have had the aid and the help of a caregiver, you don't really understand all of it's a 24-hour job. And some people don't have the luxury of being able to take off from work or being able to take off from other duties. You may be someone who is taking care of their elderly parent, but then you also have a young family of your own that you still have to tend to. Perhaps you have toddlers or kids in high school that have to be shuttled back and forth to different sporting events or art activities. So there's a lot of factors that play into the stress that is being a caregiver. Now, like I said, again, if you are a caregiver, I cannot thank you enough, because I just hope that when my time comes that I may need a caregiver, whatever age or for whatever reason that may be, that I do have someone in my immediate family and somebody close to me who has my best interest in my health and my well-being and my care at the heart of what they do. Now, if you have heard anything about being a caregiver, or we all know that it is very important for the caregiver to not neglect themselves. Now, this can mean quite a few things. It means that sometimes caregivers forget to actually eat, because perhaps the person that you're taking care of needs medication at certain hours of the day. And so you're kind of planning your day around when they need to eat and when they need to take their medication. And if they need help in bathing or using the restroom, then you have to kind of time everything according to their schedule. So it really can change your life and your everyday activities to where you forget to eat. And sometimes you don't realize that you haven't eaten all day. Like, it's been hours before you have had something to eat, if anything at all that day, until you're extremely fatigued and you're weary. And then you realize, oh, I should eat something. But then you may not have time to actually cook a full meal. And depending on dietary needs, you may spend so much time preparing meals for who it is that you're taking care of that you just grab something quick, like an apple, or you have a quick sandwich or something like that. So number one is that caregivers have to remember to eat, because when we eat, and that's something that we've discussed on this show throughout episodes, is the fuel that nutrition gives us, and especially good food that we eat, and being careful not to eat something quick like, fast food just because we're on the go, and planning ahead as best as we can. Now, again, being a caregiver, since you're so focused on the person or people that you are taking care of, that you put yourself at the back burner, but making sure that you're eating healthy snacks, whether it's yogurt or a protein shake or a protein snack or apples, bananas, different deli meat. Sometimes, wrapping deli meat. I love having, like the cheese and like turkey and things like that, whether it's a sandwich or with grapes is a good one. Even if you are on the go, there are some healthy options from different eateries that are more like fast food. You could go, if you have Starbucks, a lot of Starbucks have the drive-through, so you can get like their protein pack lunches that they have, or a wrap from there. So it's a little bit more quick. It's a drive-through, so that you can make sure that you're still eating while taking care. And of course, to consume a lot of water. And water has always been something that we have loved and praised throughout the Health and Wellness podcast, is the importance of water. And again, that's another important thing to keep yourself strong and to make sure that you're not neglecting yourself when taking care of your loved one. Now, another thing that caregivers that I believe should keep in mind when keeping care is having the ability to ask for help. Now, whether you are a caregiver and you've been a caregiver for a while, maybe it's a long-term responsibility that you have assumed, or whether you've just started, or even if it's just for a short while, maybe somebody, like I know that my mom, when I had foot surgery, she was my caregiver, my mom and my dad, and my brother helped too, because I couldn't walk. I literally was on bed rest because I couldn't walk and things like that. And so they had to help me, especially in the beginning, just to move, to, adjust myself and to adjust the pillow so that my foot, when it would start to feel heavy, I needed help even adjusting small things like that. So caregivers, they do have to basically be on call almost 24/7. But, one thing that we have to remember when you are a caregiver is to ask for help. And the reason why I think that it is important to ask for help, and this is what I mean, is not being shut, because caregivers feel that that it's their responsibility to take care of the person, and that they have to be strong for that person, and that person is already going through so much that they can't lean on the person that they're taking care of, because they may be physically unable to help, or just for whatever reason. And so asking for help from outsiders. So, we always have those people around us that say, oh, let me know if you need anything. Just give me a call and I'll swing by, or just let me know if you ever need anything. That we have people like that. But sometimes it's not that easy to ask for help. And so that is something that to call those people if you are in a family, like in my house, there was my dad and my mom and my brother. And so there'd be times when my mom would ask my brother to make dinner, or to help me make my plate and things like that, so that she can get a minute to just download a little bit, and finding time so that you can go to the grocery store just by yourself, and having somebody else stay at home with the person that you're watching, or come have lunch with them so that you can have a half an hour or an hour to yourself, whether it's to go on a walk or to go exercise or go to the gym, or like I said, just to go to the grocery store so that you can do something mindless, so that you don't have to stress for those few moments, whether it's a half an hour or an hour, if you want to read, if you need to take a shower. Because again, like I said, if you're basing your daily activities around the schedule of the person that you're taking care of, let's be real. You may forget to take a shower. If you're forgetting to eat, you may be forgetting to take a shower. Or you may want to take a longer shower because you've been taking such quick showers because you feel like you don't have time. And so asking that extra help to just get some extra alone time, I think is very important for caregivers so that they don't burn out and so that they don't feel stressed out and they don't feel that they don't have any alone time. Because as even the most kindest person who has the most compassionate and empathetic hearts and kind will can burn out, especially if it's a long-term thing. And let's be honest, not everybody that we have to take care of is easy to take care of. You have some people that don't like taking medicine. You may have somebody who wakes up in pain. You may have somebody that can't sleep at night. You may have somebody that can't control certain body movements, and that's okay. But that makes it a tad bit more difficult. And so sometimes you do need time to yourself to recharge and to reload, even if it is, again, like I said, 30 minutes to an hour of just something for yourself, even if it's just to go eat ice cream, or just to get away from outside of that room, to get outside of the house, just to get some fresh air. And so I am going to cut it to a quick break, but when I come back, I did want to share a few other tips for caregivers who, and some ways to make it a little bit less burdensome, as well as some apps for caregivers to help you in aiding you and giving care to your loved ones. So keep it locked here. You're listening to the Health and Wellness Podcast. I'll be right back.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline. In this episode, I'm discussing some advice and tips for caregivers. Now, I think that one aspect of caregiving, another aspect, I guess, that can sometimes be overlooked is the value of planning ahead. Now, like I said, not a lot of, there are times when we can plan for taking on the responsibility of being someone's caregiver, and sometimes we're thrust into that role, and that's okay. Whether, because it does happen. It's a way of life, and it's something that many of us encounter for whatever reasons. And so if you're able to plan ahead, even if it's just for that day. So now something that, I think is very helpful, especially in my experience through my own surgery and through the various surgeries that I've had and through the surgeries that I've seen, some of the recovery time that I've seen through family members and through members of like my church and members of other members of my close community is planning ahead. So for instance, if you are able to, so when I was planning my surgeries for my feet, because I already knew that when I was having my back-to-back foot surgeries that I would not be able to walk, and that it would be up to a year that I would not be able to walk because I was doing the surgeries back to back. So I made sure to do it during a time where I was not going to school and not working. So it was right after I had graduated college, because I knew, and it was before that I started working again, because I knew that very rarely can you have a job, or even if you're going to school, to where you can take off an entire year and it be okay. If you may be able to, depending on your job, you may be able to, depending on your studies, but very rarely. And not many of us are that fortunate. So I felt that, and, discussing with my parents, because they were going to be my caregivers, that, that period of time in my life would be the most ideal situation. And because I don't have any kids right now and I'm not married, I don't have any people that I'm responsible for or any people that are dependent upon me to be able to walk and be active and to like drive and carry them or whatever it may be. So that period of time for me was when we planned ahead, because when I went for my first consultation, my surgeon was basically telling me that I need to get my foot surgery as soon as possible. And that was right before I graduated college. It was about maybe 4 or 5 months before my graduation. And so I, with the help of my physician, and again, everything that you do, especially when planning surgeries or planning caregiving, nutrition, whatever it may be that's going to affect your health and your wellness, always consult your physician and make sure that your physician is on track, your surgeon, your dietitian, whoever it may be, everybody is in agreement, and that you seek their advice because, of course, they have your best interests at the heart of what they do as well. And so, with the approval of my doctor, we postponed my surgery just until after I had graduated from college and things like that, so that I would have that down period of time that I would not have to rush my recovery and I would not have to rush and have any reason to quickly get back to work or quickly get back on my feet, literally. And so planning ahead, if you're able to, can mean planning your surgery or planning where you are going to move to. If you are assuming, if you're having a loved one move in with you, you may have to move. For some people, they may have to move into a larger space because there may not be enough space, or maybe depending on the expense, move into someplace smaller and downgrade in order to pay for, I know that medical expenses can be quite overwhelming for some of us. And so planning ahead as far as your living situation, and within the living situation, making things compatible for the person that you're giving care to. So I couldn't walk. And so my home is a 2-story home. And so it would not be ideal for me to rest in my bed upstairs because I would never be able to get up and down. And I would be isolated to my upstairs bedroom because a lot of the life and activity and things that happen in my house all happen downstairs. So we actually brought a twin size mattress downstairs in the living room, and I was smack dab in the middle of everything. And that's where I slept. And that's where I hung out and would sit all day and things like that. And I could still have a lot of interaction with my family and people who came by to visit so that I didn't feel isolated. And so we had to make arrangements. We had to move some of our furniture. We had to borrow that twin size mattress and make preparations for that. There were things that we had to move in the downstairs bathroom to get it out of my way because I had one of those like knee scooters, and knee scooters are really, really cool. I love them. And, they did help me a lot, but because they can be kind of difficult to maneuver, we had to move a lot of things out of my way because it was already so difficult for me to get around that a lot of obstacles had to be moved out of the way. So that also goes into effect when you are planning ahead for people that you're going to care for, depending on their abilities. You may need to move things around, or you may need to alter things. I had to get, I had a really hard time like sitting down to use a restroom or getting in and out of the shower. So we had to adjust things to make it more easy and accessible while I was, recovering from my surgeries. So there are some things that you will have to adjust when being a caregiver. So if you're able to plan ahead, that's definitely a major benefit. But honestly, one thing that really helped me in preparing for both my foot surgery, when I had my foot surgeries, as well as my shoulder surgery, is YouTube. Now, you may be kind of thinking to yourself, what do you mean YouTube? But honestly, a lot of people document their journey, or whether it's through blogs or video blogs and things like that. They document their experience and their recovery from beginning to end and give different tips and tricks and what worked for them, what didn't work for them, what things freaked them out, and how they recovered from that, different obstacles that they faced. And my mom and I actually would sit before both my shoulder surgery and my foot surgeries and watch these videos and read these different blogs, to kind of prepare myself and get tips and tricks and try things while I was still able-bodied before my surgeries, to kind of try things out and to see how we would work it out. And you may need to buy extra clothes. When I had my foot surgeries, I wore a lot of dresses. And luckily I had it during the summertime, so it was really hot, but I wore a lot of dresses so I wouldn't have to pull anything up over my huge cast that was over. It was from my toes all the way up to almost to my knee. And so it was really bulky. And so that did help me in preparing, is reading things online, researching different pros and cons to some of the advice. But of course, again, you always want to ask your doctor. And my doctor, he was very open to things and we had a really good line of communication. So when there is things that I may see on YouTube or read in a blog or in an article that I told him that I wanted to try, he could give me some feedback too. And especially if it's like a surgery, and are dealing with a surgeon who has done this for a while, he was actually able to give me some tips. And he'd be like, some of my patients, this is what they've tried, or this is what they have done. And some people are actually willing, when you have a surgeon, see, my doctor was specific in what he does. He specialized. So he has been doing this for over 30 years. So he has a huge following of patients who have come to him for multiple surgeries like myself, or they refer friends, they refer family members. And so there are also some of his patients willing to talk to new patients and nervous patients about their experience, what helped and what worked for them. So he kind of had like a really good network for us. So that might be another location that you can start if you are getting ready to assume the position of being a caregiver, is if it's, asking their doctor and asking the nurses and asking the people of the facility if they have any suggestions or recommend any resources or people even around you or in your community, whether it's online through YouTube or things like that, to get advice to help you prepare. And there's a lot more than you think, and you're not alone. And that's the one thing that's really great about being a caregiver, is that you're not alone, and that there are resources around you, and there's people that want to help, and there's people that understand what you are going through because they've been there or they're going through it as well. And it's even nice to read sometimes that other people are tired or other people are over it. When I wanted to have those foot surgeries, yes, I needed them, but I also wanted them back to back. And it was nice to see that there was times read other people's experience, and when they would say, okay, it's been about 15 weeks and I'm over it. I'm hot and I'm tired, because around that time for me, I was getting really exasperated with it and things like that. And so it's really nice to know that you're not the only person feeling that way. And that can, be part of your preparation, is talking to others while it's happening, before it happens, getting advice, getting the feedback, the good, the bad, and otherwise on that experience, to kind of just lighten the load a little bit. And so we are actually going to cut it to a quick break real quick. And when I come back, I wanted to discuss some online tools, like some apps that you can have on your phone, on your tablet, that can help make caregiving a little bit easier for you. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast. I will be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch, whatever it may be.
Welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and I am getting ready to wrap up this episode. But before I do, I promised you guys some apps that I have found, that I've come across, that will help you, that are just designed to help you as a caregiver. Now, when and you don't have to use an app and you don't have to use online tools. Some people just like to have things written out, but at the same time, it's kind of nice because a lot of us do have smartphones and a lot of us have people in our lives that we want to take care of. And I think that it's really cool that apps have been developed to help us. Now, when I was, I know I've been talking a lot about this episode, giving my personal experience through my surgeries, but it's because I can relate to it. And it's because I had to go through this period of time that I understand both the patient side, the person who is incapable, as well as the side of the person who is caregiving. And it's difficult for both. It really is. It truly is difficult for the people who are taking care and the people that are receiving the care. I don't care what anybody says. It's difficult for both. And there's times when both parties are over it. And there's times when both parties feel they can do this. And there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be days where you're going to cry. There's going to be days when it's just too much. And then there's going to be days where you are so excited due to little progress. I remember when I had my shoulder surgery, I was just so excited to finally bend my elbow again and to move. I was so proud to be able to, pull my shirt up over my head, and how exciting that was for me that my arm was finally strong enough and had that mobility back, to make that rotation of pulling your shirt up and over your back, or even just, I'm a girl. So, just being able to reach back and snap my bra off. I was because, that backward motion of being able to twist my arm behind my back and reach up was a feat in itself at that time. So there are going to be times when the little things are just huge, huge triumphs. And so, I just love that technology has understood this and developed ways to make it a tad bit easier for us. Now, like I said, when you are giving care or you are receiving care, a lot of times, especially initially, it may be long-term, it may be short-term, it may be on a need-by basis, but you may encounter being on medication and more than one. And a lot of times there are, whether we are drinking the medication, whether we have to take pills prescribed to us, whatever it is, a lot of times it's on an hourly rotation, like every 4 hours, every 4 to 6 hours, twice a day, after meals, on an empty stomach. Like, you have to be on a schedule. And so it can be difficult. And if you have people who are rotating caregiving for you, so like in my family, my mom, she works during the day. So she's gone during the day, and then my dad would help me during the day. And then at the evening time, when my mom would come back home, she would kind of pick up, and she would sleep downstairs with me and wake up in the middle of the night. And so one thing, there's 2 tips that I want to give you, fellow caregivers and patients, soon to be patients or soon to be people who may need care. But there's 2 ways that we kind of tricks, I guess, that really helped me, is that we just set multiple alarms. So on my phone, on everybody's phone, really. And so, because when I was on pain medicine, it was every 4 to 6 hours. So every 4 or 5 hours, I would set an alarm. And so I would have it at 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and so on and so forth, just multiple throughout the day. So that even if we weren't thinking about it, it would chime and it would say medicine, and we had it on repeat. So every day on the head, it would always just chime, whether we remembered or not. Because there's sometimes where you're oh, I should have took my medicine. Oh, I'm 30 minutes behind. Or you're starting to feel pain and you're oh my gosh, I forgot to take it. And there's nothing worse than starting to feel that pain and having to suffer for a little bit because you missed your meds or something like that. And for some of you, it may be more of a dire situation if you forget to take your medicine. There's a lot of medication that you have to take on time, which I understand. And so that does help, as well as we would write it down. We would just make columns on paper, and I would just write the time, 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and just write it over and over and over and over again. And each time I would take my medicine, I would cross off. And now sometimes if you're taking more than one medicine, then you may need to write like 6 a.m. Tylenol, 10 a.m. this, or whatever it may be. Now, if you're somebody like me, I can't take a lot of medicine all at once. I have to I have to make it sporadic because it starts to hurt my stomach, whether I've eaten something or not. It just hurts my stomach. So, my sister actually came up with this system. So she would write, 6 a.m. Tylenol, 7 a.m. this, and back and forth. And she would alternate how she would write the hours so that anytime I need, if somebody was if I woke up and maybe my mom was there to help me or my brother was there to help me, everybody could follow along on the chart and see what it was that I was supposed to take at what time. And so that made it really plain. It kept everything on schedule, kept everything on track. It would remind me, because sometimes when you're on a lot of medicine, whether it's pain medicine or just whatever it may be that you're on, you may forget yourself. You may be dozing in and out of sleep. You may be just so busy that day because maybe that's your therapy day, or maybe that's a day where you have to incorporate a different medicine that you only take once a week. So it just helps keep everything on schedule. And that's kind of like what I liked about these apps that I found, that I came across, because they really do help. And so there's one called CareZone that you can get for free on iPhone or Android, and it helps keep track of medical information by organizing medicine, allergies, insurance cards, and IDs all in one spot. And it also helps you to keep track. You can make a to-do list. It can keep track of your appointments, your medication times. It also lets you log relevant information for the person that you're taking care of. So it could be about an illness. It could be about a disability or a condition, whether or not they have different allergies, if they're allergic to certain medications, certain foods, certain limitations that they may have. So you could keep it all logged in one place. And that, again, is called CareZone. They also have another one that I thought was really, really cool, because it's kind of, it helps keep some information nearby. It tells you nearby locations of medical clinics, of different places that you can visit. It's the First Aid by American Red Cross. Now, it also tells you what to do. You can log in symptoms that somebody is portraying or things like that. And it can kind of walk you in step by steps on how to help with CPR, the basics, and what to do in case of emergency, and factors to look for and things to look for when somebody is having perhaps, like a heart attack or choking, or there's just an emergency that's happening. Then you can see their symptoms. You can kind of log on. You can find addresses and locate how close these different medical clinics are in conjunction to your exact and current location. So I think that is another one that was really good. And that's First Aid by American Red Cross. But like I said, you can, on the app stores, the various app stores, whether it's Google Play and iTunes and things like that, or even online, you can download these different apps and different online resources to help you log or to keep things close hand for you and close hand for others who may need to access that information depending on any given situation that may arise. So I just thought those were two really cool ones that were different in their nature, but all have the same goal to make things as safe and healthy as possible. And so that's actually going to do it for this episode of the Health and Wellness Podcast. I really hope that I was able to share something that may make it a little bit easier for you if you are a caregiver or preparing to be a caregiver. If you have any other tips, I would love to hear on Facebook or Twitter, because like I said, again, there's nothing better than sharing the plethora of information that you may acquire as being a caregiver, or even being somebody who is the recipient of being of a caregiver. You know, there's little tips and tricks, what worked, what didn't work, what you would change, what you would do different. It's all to help one another and to help with an aid in everybody's health and wellness. So you can, of course, listen to this episode again on Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes, as well as on our network website, gsmcpodcast.com. I am your host, Pauline. And like I said, if you have any other information or any other tips for caregivers or people who are going through a similar situation, please share on Facebook and Twitter. And if you have one of these apps, how do you like it? How has it helped you? If you don't have one of these apps, it may be kind of cool. Or maybe you're like my family, where we just like to write it down on paper so it's just visible and it's right there. And they would just keep it on the beds, not the bedside table, but like on the downstairs counter so everybody could see it. And there would even be times when I would wake up and I'd be like, oh, I need to take some medicine, but I didn't know which one. I wasn't sure which rotation I was on. And then whoever was there and close by can just see, oh, it's going on 11:30. She probably needs this one, just to make sure it's just easy access and plain for everyone for the health and well-being of the person that we're taking care for. So I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we will talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.